Here's a way to think about feed optimizations. Hey everyone, I'm Daniel Hazan. And before I get into anything, I want to read you this quote written by Jacques van der Wilt. And it goes as follows. In feed management, a popular credo among marketers is, let me solve the feed errors so I can move on to optimizing my campaign. This approach, while addressing the immediate pain point, may inadvertently create a blind spot in their PPC strategy. So what I found most interesting about this quote is when Jacques mentioned the term blind spot. Now, when I think of the term blind spot, I like to think of driving a car, right? The road in front of you, or the perceived road in front of you, may seem all good and clear, but the blind spot is something that, if missed, can impact your journey in a negative way. As such. So, as we learned from previous presentations, right, the data that you feed back into Google is extremely important to give Google good signals to optimize your campaigns effectively and efficiently. In this case, Jacques is talking about the feed itself being that extremely important data point that you're feeding back into Google. And if you avoid optimizing it, can impact your campaigns in a negative way. So don't let the perceived road of your campaign structure fool you into thinking that your account is set up for success. The reason why I bring this up is because we feel like feed optimization typically gets overlooked. And the reason why it gets overlooked is because it's extremely time-consuming and difficult. Right? Let's say you have an e-commerce shop and you have about 3,000 products you have to optimize your feed. That can definitely take a burden on your shoulders, right? So as AI tools became more available to us, we felt like this would be an important opportunity to try to find a solution utilizing AI to take the burdens off of feed optimization. So a few months ago, we began to experiment and to try to find different solutions of how AI can do this. And I'm happy to tell you that it wasn't as much of a success as I thought it would be. We haven't solved the ultimate task we wanted to accomplish, but we learned a lot and we figured out along the way. So, and because of this journey, I better understand the limitations and the capabilities that generative AI has to offer. And today, I want to show you what those are. So here's what I tried, here's what worked, here's what didn't, and here's what I learned. So what we ended up doing is finding this add-on within Google Sheets called GPT for Sheets and Docs. It's a very similar platform or AI tool that you would typically use ChatGPT, right? You would ask ChatGPT a question and it would produce an answer. Except this application actually uses information on the sheet to determine the answer. So what happened is we figured that, hey, you know what? Let's try to see how this can improve our feed. And what we did essentially is we took a bunch of product titles from just an ordinary Shopify site or any website. And what we did is did the following. We entered in this equation. You just enter the same way as you would do any math equation on a Google Sheet, but you would write GPT, and then within that you would request it to do the same thing as you typically would on ChatGPT. So in this case, what we did for all these products is we decided to try out this GPT model, creating a dynamic headline and description. So we wrote the following. Hey, GPT, write a product headline that's 50 characters long based on the product title located in column A. And we did the same thing for descriptions as well. And it was amazing. The generative AI actually created a headline and description. And you know what? That's not even the cool part, right? That was one product that we sort of went through. But what we were able to do is grab the corner of that cell and drag it down 3,000 columns. So a task that typically would take maybe a few days, weeks, I don't know, months to do, I just accomplished in a matter of seconds. Pretty cool, no? So that's not the only thing that worked, right? Let's say you are serving a product in a different country, right, that speak a different language. You need to make sure that your advertisements are catering to them. So instead of going in like the same way you would do for a headline and description, and go one by one into editing and translating your headlines and descriptions, we asked the machine to do the exact same thing. Translate this product title into Spanish. And it did it. And the same thing again. All we had to do is grab the end of that cell and drag it down 3,000 columns. So we just created 3,000 headlines, 3,000 descriptions, and 3,000 translated titles within just a matter of minutes. Pretty cool. So this is what worked, and that was great. So what didn't work? Well, there are other attributes of a feed that you need to optimize as well, such as a Google product category. So just to give a little context for those of you who may not understand what a Google product category is, it's a list of categories, essentially, that you match up a product with in order for Google to properly identify your product. So we decided to do the same thing. Hey, it worked for headlines, it worked for descriptions and translations. Hey, ChatGPT, create me the proper Google product category based on the title. However, there was a bit of an issue. What it produced was something that looked like a Google product category, but wasn't, in fact, a Google product category. If you take a look at this example, right, we have jewelry and diamonds as the last part of this breadcrumb over here, which is not part of the Google product category list. And from here, I learned a lesson. And the lesson goes as follows. Generative AI bases its information on patterns of a source, not necessarily basing it on the source itself, which we would typically need it to do in this situation. So the message I really wanted to relate to you guys when it comes to utilizing a tool like this is not to expect these generative AI tools to generate the answer that you're looking for and expect it to know it immediately. Rather, train it and give it the knowledge it needs in order for it to produce the answer that you'd like. Look, generative AI is becoming more advanced by the day. I'm optimistic that rather soon we would be able to have a model that will be able to create us Google product categories and multiple attributes of a feed. But in the meantime, I'm asking you, the DOLA audience, and the broader marketing community, two things. One, going back to the first part of my presentation, don't let the intimidation of feed optimization get the best of you. Take the extra mile to optimize your feed. That is essentially the data you're feeding back into Google. And the second thing is to help me and pick up where I left off. I'm sure that if we put our heads together, we would be able to find a solution that utilizes AI to help generate all attributes of a Google product feed. Look, guys, we're in the next stage of generative AI. AI is the future. If we all put in the work and put our brains together, we can eventually find solutions that can help us make our jobs better and efficient. Thank you guys so much for listening, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day here at DOLA.